we are not seeing this. So there is a private DNS and private IP, that address is updated, but the public DNS and public IP information is missing. Now, what happens in AWS environment? So whenever you work with a virtual machine, sorry, not this, not bad. So whenever we create an EC2 instance and we stop and start it, IP changes. So IP changes because it's dynamic. So IP is dynamically assigned. Now it's good if you are just working and testing with the system, you can stop it, you can restart it, so it's always fine. But let's consider a scenario where you are working with list of web servers, which you have already deployed, configured onto your load balancers, right? What happens in that case? So let's say first time IP was something like this, right? And then you had another, and this is what you have put in your load balancer. So in your load balancer, you said these are the two IP I'm load balancing. But when these IP changes, it's gonna affect your load balancer, and these IPs will be lost. Now to preserve that, we have something called Elastic IP. This is right here. So that is something we can assign to any of the EC2 instances. Now, one thing to be noted here is, let me write it down so that we remember it. EC2 Elastic IP is free, but there is a condition that it, just give me a second, guys, I'm getting a call. About that. Okay, so but there is a condition that your IP, Elastic IP is free, but condition is that it must be attached to EC2 instance. That means whenever you create an Elastic IP, you should attach it or associate it with one of the EC2 instance. Now, what happens in the case if you don't associate it? So in case you have created it and you have not associated it with EC2 instance, then the same Elastic IP becomes chargeable. Then you will be charged for it. Right. So make sure that whenever you create one, you assign it to one of the EC2 instances. So what we are going to do is, let's first do a testing. So we are going to start one of the instance and we'll observe the IP here, and then we'll see how it affects. So we are starting this. Now, so that's going to start it sometime. In the meantime, let's go and create our Elastic IP as well. All right, so I'm saying Elastic IP scope is VPC, so that's within VPC, and I'm saying allocate. So I'm just creating one IP. So this is the IP which is being generated, and I'll be using this IP. Okay, so it's being generated, and right now it is not associated with anything. So it is independent. So we can see that no association ID, no network interface ID, nothing. So all these informations are not available, no instance and no private IP. Actually, this is what we should be focused on. So we have to attach it to one of the instances, and then that should appear here. So we don't see any of those information. All right, let's go back and check for the instance which is running. So this is what we created. Now we can see that IP is being generated dynamically for the instance which we are starting, right? Okay, so this is what we observe. So I'm going to make a note of these two, and we'll observe the changes. So I started my machine, my IP is this. Let me make it a little better so that it's easier to see it. Right, and I'm removing this for now. Okay, so this is the public DNS and this is the public IP which I've got. Now let me do one thing. Another point to be noted here is that although when I stop and start, IP changes, but when I do a restart, IP will not change because you're just doing a restart. So IP will not change. So that's just, you should remember the difference between restart and stop. So let's first do, it's running and I'm quickly gonna do restart, reboot, right? So I'll do reboot. And we will see that even if I reboot, the IP will not change. And it's not going to show you, it will still be in the same stages. So mainly I have done the reboot and it is not changing anything. It's still the same IP, everything the same. So no changes to that. Okay, now let's stop it and we are going to start it. So I'm stopping it and then we will attach Elastic IP and then we start it. No, let's start it just like that. So this is the IP which we have made a note of. That was the IP available. And I'm going to stop it and then let's start it again. It's going to take a while to stop. Okay, so in the meantime, let's cover a few other things which we have actually covered as a part of our theoretical scenarios, which comes in terms of pricing. So we saw that under instances, you have number of these instances. So first one is instance, which is where we see our dashboard and the number of instances. Second is nothing but launch template. So if you want to create a template, so automatically, if you want to create and you want to provide EC2 scaling, EC2 fleet is what you want to create, number of EC2 instances. You can also create a template, which mainly we choose if you are creating something on our, or you can keep it as a template, which is more like a file, which will have details about how many EC2 instances you want. So you can create a template and you can use that template to create EC2 instances. Then you have something called spot request. A spot request is more like a bidding, which we discussed earlier. So if you have done a bidding on any of the EC2 instances, and if you have won one of these, then that instance will be available to you and you would be able to see it right here. So you have to request for that. Similarly, reserved instances, you pay upfront pricing, but it will be much cheaper than on demand. So pay as you go, it will be much cheaper than that. So you can purchase that as well. Dedicated host, that means you need a dedicated machine. And if you do that, it will be chargeable a little higher than your reserved and spot. That's because you want it to be running on a dedicated server. So this is how it works. So you'll be using that. And schedule is more like you have one of the environment which is free, you can have reserved capacity onto that and you can purchase one of the schedules. So mainly these are all in terms of pricing. You can go for a spot, reserve, dedicated and host. Depending upon your requirement, you can purchase it right from your AWS. Okay, AMI is something which we have already discussed. So we have created it and all, and bundle task is nothing but when you want to do things in bulk. EC2 dashboard events, if there are any events, so mainly an alarm or anything which is generated, which we'll be seeing it later, not now. But yeah, if such kind of things are happening, that will be updated right here. Similarly, if you want to generate reports, it has EC2 instance usage report or reserve instance utilization report. So anyway, we won't be using it until you have a reserved instance. But this is handful. It's more like a tool which tells you what are your usage in terms of EC2. It gives you a graphical interface actually. That's something we have even seen from billing dashboard, but this is a bit different in terms of Cost Explorer. So you can see that. So for example, let's see. So there is a T2 medium instance which is running for, on August it was running about up to $20 is what you're being charged for it. Then there is in July, you have green, that means in some other instance, not the EC2, not one of these, but maybe it was RDS or something else. Similarly, in month of September, and then this is T2.large. So yeah, there was a time when T2.large was also run during July, August, September. So it's a way of tracking it. You would be able to track it. You can change your table you can have different features, you can have line diagrams. So yeah, you can have number of choices, and then you can group by different objects as well. So mainly it's just a report which you can create report, and if you have to show it to your organization, it's easier way to tell them that this how much your resources are occupied or utilized. All right. So that's about that. Just reports is what we have. And there is one more thing which is interesting, and you would be thinking why it is there. So there is something called limits. Now, why this limits is in picture? When you work with free tier or any of the accounts which you have, it will have certain limits set. So for example, you cannot create more than that, okay, something like that. So in case you have a requirement to create more than, for example, let's see here. So on demand c1.medium instances, you can create up to 5. That means they have restricted you up to 5. So once you create it till 5, and then you still need more, you have to create more, you can request limit increase. Once you do that, Amazon AWS approves it, and then you would be able to create more instances. So it's more like instances limit is being defined at limit. Okay, Elastic Cloud.
When you request it and they approve it, are you gonna get charged?
No, so it's not. I mean, so this is like you are requesting a limit. So when you create one of these instances, right? So they will be not charging for this for approving it mainly, but you won't be able to create more. But as per your organization, maybe you want to create more. You are not 5 is not okay with you. You need more instances. So you're just requesting them to increase your limits, and they'll just increase it. Nothing but they are not going to charge for that. Okay, and then this is what I will be discussing, but I'm just keeping it until we start with storage, because although this is not covered as part of AWS storage, but it also comes under storage, so we'll be dealing with that in during that time. All right, so security groups is something which we have discussed. Key pair we have discussed. Network interfaces is nothing. It's again part of your EC2 instances, but that's something we'll be discussing during VPC. And placement groups is when you want to put your EC2 instances together for a better performance, but it's not in use anymore. It was there in use when people were using EC2 Classic. And this is what we are currently working with, Elastic IP, which is ready, and our instance should be ready now as well. So it is start, and I'm going to start it again, and we will see the changes. So right now, again, those IPs are gone, and we have to start it. And now once it is started, we are going to match it with this one. Okay. In the meantime, so this is also what we have covered. We have covered ELB, which is our load balancer, and target groups is part of it. Auto scaling, we are not going to cover now, but we'll be covering when we discuss about management tools. So this falls under management tools, although it's part of EC2, but they have given it under management tools, so I'll take it up at that time. And then others are systems manager service, which is again comes under your management tools, which checks for your baseline, compliance, automation, configurations, all those things. So again, it's part of your management tools again. And then system manager service resources. Again, this is part of the same. So from the EC2 point of view, we have covered it. And we'll go to Elastic IP. Once that phase is done, we will be moving into other services which are based on EC2. And we'll see that how they differ and what they have in terms of EC2 additional. Okay, so anyways, so in the time it is starting, so it's going to take some time. Let's observe the changes. So this is what we see now. So IP certainly has been changed. So it's not good if you're working in one of the environments where you want your IP to be same all the time. You don't want your web server, your application server to change IP all the time, and you cannot go about doing all those configuration every time. So what do you do in this case? So you can have Elastic IP is what we have created, and I'm going to associate it with my EC2 instance. So let's do that. So I'll say right click. So you can do it from here, doing a right click, or you can also do it from actions as well. So both are same. And this is applicable for almost all of these. Now you have two options here: associate as address and release address. So right now it's not associated with anything, so I cannot release it. So associate, disassociate. So release is you don't want this Elastic IP anymore, and it will be more like it will be you are kind of deleting it. So that's what it says, release address. Okay, so let's associate it. And then I have to choose instance. And I would like to choose the one which we have created, which is this, and it says running. So I'll be choosing this one. And I can also choose the private IP, which comes by default, depending upon once I choose the instance. Okay, and allow Elastic IP to be reassociated if already attached. Yes, this is what I want. So whenever you start your machine, it will automatically be associated. And I'll say associate. Okay, so it says it's done. And now we can see the changes. So instance is being added, private IP is being added, it has an association ID, network interface ID. So now these values are updated now. Let's go back and check our EC2 instance where we have attached it. Is there a change? So let's go to this one and we can see that there is a change, right? So this is the first time when we started it, then we stopped it and started it again. And now we have associated Elastic IP to our EC2 instance. Let's see the changes. The first time address was this, then we stopped it and started it again. It got changed to this one. Then we have associated Elastic IP to this one. Now, if I stop or start it again, it should not be changing our IP. And that's the whole reason I'm doing all this, right? So let's stop this.
So when you stop it, the IP address, it will not change, right?
Yeah, this time it's not going to change because now what we have done, we have associated Elastic IP. So now we are making Elastic IP association. So what we did so far, let me just explain it one more time. So first time we started virtual machine. Okay. So it came with one of the IP. So it gave us the below IP, which we see. Then next we did stop and start. So we stopped it again and then started it. In that case, the IP changed from the previous one. So earlier, first time when I started, IP was 18.234.157.250, which after stopping it and starting it again, changed to this one. Now, to make sure that my IP doesn't changes all the time, what I did, I created an Elastic IP and I associated with EC2 instance. So mainly, I associated it with the same EC2 instance which was running here. Now, once I have done it, if I stop it going forward, if I stop and start, my IP will never change, because that's the reason I'm creating Elastic IP, which is more like a permanent IP assigned to this particular machine. So I have assigned an Elastic IP to this machine, and now this has become permanent. So if even if I start number of times, stop and start it, it's not going to change. So let's observe one more difference. Now we can see that there is one more change. I have stopped this, still my public IP is visible. And how do I compare? Let's click on any one of them where Elastic IP is not assigned. You see the difference? So this is where I have not assigned Elastic IP, and it doesn't give me the detail about public DNS and public IP. While in this case, it does, because it is associated with Elastic IP, and that's the difference between your Elastic IP and your this DNS. Okay, there is one more thing Elastic IP can do. So Elastic IP, so you can just simply call it IP. Why does it is called Elastic IP? Reason is pretty simple. So Elastic IP has one property that it's reusable. What does that mean? So that means in case I want to associate it with any other instance, I can certainly do that. So I can also choose any others. For example, if I go for demo EC2 or EC2 demo VPC, right? I can do that as well. Let's check that. Oh, okay. So what I did, I should cancel it first because it's already associated. So I'll have to disassociate first. Okay, let's do that. It's done. Now I can reassociate. So now I'll do associate. And now let's choose the one. Okay, and I'm not going to say this for now. I'll just say associate, and it's done. So now what will happen? Now from the previous EC2 instance, it will just go. So I have added it here. Now I can see the IP here. While on this one, it is not there because I have stopped it. So let's associate it back to this machine, and I'm going to start machine, and I will see that IP is not going to change. So I just showed you that we can actually disassociate, and then we can associate it to different EC2 instance as well. So we can reuse it. Okay, so let's select it for the one which we did. Okay, now I'm going to start, and then IP will not change. It will be same as what it was. So remember that what was the IP? So this is the IP after I created Elastic IP and I associated it with EC2 instance. So I'm going to start it now. So anyways, it's not going to change because from the beginning, it is showing you the same IP. Even if server is in shutdown status, it will have the same IP. And that's the use of your Elastic IP. So you can make use of it when you're working with load balancers or any of other external tools. And it's also secure in one way because Elastic IP addresses will be different while your EC2 virtual machines address keeps on changing dynamically. All right, so let it get started. Let's go to the next topic, which is where we'll be discussing few other topics. So EC2 we have discussed, and now we know about it quite a number of things. Okay, there's one more thing. Let me cover that as well because it doesn't come under storage. I was thinking I'll cover it during storage, but let me do that as well. So you have something called Elastic Block Storage. Now, what is Elastic Block Storage is? It's called EBS as well in short. So that's your Elastic Block Storage, and it is mounted. So mainly, it is mounted to your EC2 instances directly. So when you create EC2 instances, by default, there will be something called root device, and then there will be mount point for root drive. So mainly you get it. Now you can have additional as well. So if you add additional EBS volume, you can do that. So it's more like a volume, one of the mount points which you see. And how do I see that? So if EC2 instances comes in, if I'll do df-edge, something like that, I would be able to get through. Okay, let me also connect to one of the machines so that we can check it. Okay, but volume is where you store your stuff. So anything, any files, you create. Yes, we were running other day yum install, and we were doing so many things. So whatever things you do, everything gets stored in your EBS volumes. But whenever you create a separate EBS volume, that is also elastic. So even your EBS are elastic. In AWS world, everything is elastic. So let's check for volume as well. And volume has other property as well. You can keep a backup of that. So you can save it as a snapshot, you can store it somewhere else, and then you can create volume from that backup. Okay, so let's do df-edge, and this is your root volume, root device, and that's also your EBS volume as well. Now, how do we see that? Let's go to volume and check that out. So your EBS is here. So you have three things within your EBS block store. You have volumes, you have snapshots, and lifecycle manager. Lifecycle manager is nothing but it defines, between your snapshots and other things. Okay. So volumes is something which is attached to your EC2 instance, while snapshot is a snapshot which you take of your volume. It's more like a file, But remember that snapshot is being chargeable. So if you create a snapshot and keep it, you will be getting charged for it. So if you want to practice it, but as soon as you're done, remove it. Okay, and so what we do with the volume, we create a snapshot, we store it, and later when we can use that snapshot to create the same volume again. So it's more like a backup which you can create in a form of snapshot. Now let's see what we have. So we have number of volumes here, right? 30 GB, 10 GB, 8 GB, 1 GB, and quite number of them. So what I'm going to do is, so I'm going to create a customized volume and just for 1 GB, the short one. So I'll say 1. Okay, now this is important. Now I should be creating it in the availability zones of my EC2 instance, right? So I need to make sure that where I'm creating. So for that, let's go for EC2 instance and check what all availability zones we have. So we can create it to one of them, or let's do it for our EC2 instance which is running, right? So let's do it for that one. So this is running on US East 1B. So I'll be creating volume in US East 1B. Now what happens if I create a volume in another one, this EC2 instance will not appear in my list. So I have to make sure that I'm creating it to the right availability zones. Okay, so this is the one. Let's go back to volume and create in US East 1B. So I'm creating one volume and I'll create it for a minimal size, which is 1 GB. Okay, and then I'll say US East 1B. Okay, now that's being done. Snapshot, there is no snapshot. I can choose one of the existing ones, but yeah, I'm not doing that because we'll be creating snapshot from this one. And encryption is additionally you can use, but if you use that, then you have to buy certificates. So don't use that for now. What we are learning is creating a volume and then creating a snapshot from it. So we are creating 1 GB size volume. And let's say create volume. Okay, so it's creating that volume and we can see it should be appearing. It's not appearing now. Let me quickly refresh it. Yeah, so that's the one which is it's just creating. Let me name it new, or I'll say okay, new volume. Okay, just so that I remember that why it is created. So 1 GB storage I've created, it's new volume, and there is no snapshot for it as of now. So I'm not creating. And what it says is available. That means it is available but not in use. So it is not attached to any of the EC2 instances. So this volume is there, it is lying idle. It is of no use as of now, but it is being created. So I can do it from here, or I can do it right click. I prefer right click, so I'll do right click. Otherwise, you can do it from here. Now, so it is scalable and elastic as well. Now, why it is scalable? So it's scalable because you can increase the size. So you can modify the volume. Now I've created for 1 GB. I can also make it 10 GB, 20 GB, or 100 GB. So it's scalable in that sense. And elastic because it accept root volume. This is what you have to remember. Accept root volume. You can attach volume to any EC2 instance. Okay, so that's what you can do. So if I have to do that, so let's first check for modify. Okay, so if I want to modify, I can certainly do this as well, or I can just say 100. So I can have up to 16384 GBs, but I don't want to increase the size. So yeah, if you want to do that, you can do that. So that's the first option for modify. Second is create snapshot. That means you want to create snapshot for this volume so that in case of failure, or in case of later on, if you want to create similar volume, you would be able to do it. All right, and then this is delete volume, and this is where we have attach volume. So let's go to attach volume, and it's again same like how we have done it for our just what we did also for elastic IP. Similar to that, we can use it for this. So as soon as I said attach, I got three options. So in US East 1B, there are three machines running, and this is the machine which we are using. So I'm going to choose this one. That's being done, and you can see that device information has automatically come up. Right, so let's say attach. Okay, and then it says in use. Now, what does that mean? That means it is attached to your EC2 instance, which is running, which is this one. So we can check it from here as well. Let's check it from this console first. Okay, we see that. So there is a root device which has a default volume, which we can see, and then there is another block device being added. So let's validate from here as well. So this should be okay. It's not showing here, but yeah, so it's available. Once we start, it should be there. But this is how we attach, and you can attach number of instances. Now let me do one more change. I'm going to remove it from this instance, and then we will attach it to some other instance. Let's do that as well. So what I'm going to do now, detach. Done. Okay, now that's being done. So from that instance, it is gone, and I will be attaching it now. Okay, so it's going to take some time. So it has to become available again. It isn't currently in use, so it should become available. It just takes some time sometimes to flow through. The information has to flow. So it is not showing here. So it's gone actually, but yeah, it is still not appearing as an available. Yeah, so now it's back. It takes some time sometimes. All right, so this will be done. Now I'm going to attach it to any other volume. So I'm attaching, and this time I'll be choosing some other instance, which is, let's say, EC2 demo, right? And I say attach. So I've added 1 GB of storage to that. So sometimes when you want to add additional GBs, you can do it using your volume as well. Let's go. So it says in use. Let's go back to EC2 instance and check the other one, which is this machine, demo PC. And then it should have an entry for the volume. Yeah, so it's there. So it's really elastic and scalable. You can increase the size. You can make it 1 GB or 100 GB or 2000 GBs within minutes. And at the same time, you can change it between EC2 instances. So again, this is also reusable, which you can make use of it. Now, one more thing to understand here is snapshot. So that's about volume. Now, what is snapshot for? If I create a snapshot, which is more like a copy or a point of time, particular point of time of this particular volume state. So I'll say volume snapshot check. Okay, this is what we're doing. And I'll say, okay, I'm not giving name because I'm going to delete it anyways. So create snapshot. So it's creating this snapshot now. Let's go and see. So now we should see something in the snapshot as well. So it says pending, and it's almost 99% done. So it should be available anytime now. So okay, so until the time this created, anyways, it is created now. Good. So it says available, progress 100%. It's completed. Now I have the snapshot. So what I have now is volume, and I also have a snapshot. Now why is snapshot useful? Maybe I have some list of files or libraries already installed or deployed onto this volume. Now I want a similar volume to be created for other EC2 instance. I have a choice. I can detach it from here or attach it there, or I can create a similar volume so that I don't have to perform those installation again. So once I've created a snapshot, I can use this snapshot again and again to create volume. And how do you do that? So you say, this is for deleting, but create volume. You can also create image, which you can save on your S3. We will just say for creating volume for now. And then I'm going to create another one. And this time I can change availability zone to 1. So it is not even dependent on this availability zones. So earlier it was 1B, this time I'll do 1A. So I can attach it to all the instances which are on 1A. And let's create it. So that's being done. And I should be getting another volume. Yes. The only difference between this one and this one is that this is something which I created from scratch, while this one is being created from a snapshot. So that what differs in terms of volume. All right, so snapshot is something you can use to create volume as well. But like I said, your snapshot is not free, so they charge you for that. So it's make sure that you remove your snapshot as soon as you have performed your testing. And you can also create image from AWS snapshot, and then you can upload that image to your S3 as well. All right, so that covers our most of the EC2 parts, which we are doing. Okay, I'll have to do something. My screen is dancing. Okay, it's back. All right, so I'm going to create, I'm going to delete it for now because I know that this is being chargeable. So I'll delete it. Right, so snapshot is being deleted, and then it's fine. So these are the volume which I've created. All right, so let's move to a few other services which are light sale. And then these are container services. So let's go for first light sale. So light sale is a latest addition to AWS services. And what it does is it is basically on top of EC2 instance. So it runs, so it's a service which runs on top of EC2 instance, except for one difference, that it provides developer an easy way not to install software. So all those software are preloaded. So what you get with this, so you get instances, you get databases, you get networking, you get storage, and you get snapshots. So all these are readily available to you. So you don't have to do it. But unlike EC2, which is covered as a part of your free tier, light sale is not. So you have to remember that when you are creating light sale, it will be charged. So let's go and check that. So I'm saying instance created. But then why would someone choose light sale over EC2? Reason is pretty simple. So it comes with few additions such as it gives you all these things for free. So they are just charging you for EC2 instance. But if someone is trying to work with WordPress or WordPress multi-site or LAMP, Mean, Nginx, any of these servers, so that's their requirement. So they don't have to bring in their EC2, they don't have to perform their installation and make sure that it all works. Okay, so they can just order it from here and then they can use it. Based on that, they will be getting charged. For example, this is for first month 3.50 and then later on, and different configuration which you have depend and different pricings for that. So what I'm going to do now, other thing is OS. So the first one is just app plus OS. So you will be getting operating system and application installed on top of it, which is a running application. And when you say OS, you can just choose between these operating systems. And then you can choose what you want. Now, good thing here is, again, if you are ready to pay a good price, you can decide based on what you want. So if you're interested in price per month, you can choose one of these. If you're interested in more memory, you can change. So for 32 GB machine, this is what you will be getting, a 32 GB, and it will be costing 160 USD, 8 vCPU, 640 GB SSD, and 7 terabytes of data storage. Now, if memory is not the primary requirement, you need CPU power, you can go for this. Storage, you can go for storage components. And transfer. So mainly it's all these machines are similar, but it just shows you differently based on what you get. So yeah, that's an easy way to launch your instance. And once you create your instance, it will be charging you based on the pricing it is showing you on the screen. So if you really need a good system, maybe 8 GB, it costs you probably about 40 USD. Or and rest all is same. So you'll be creating your key pair, which you'll be using to connect your EC2 instance. So it will be creating your EC2 instances, but with few additions and with a better performance. So either you can go for Linux or Windows platform. You can choose one of these, right? In this case, it's giving you SQL Server 2016 Express. So someone who wants to run that server, they can make use of it. So that is your light sale. It's a different service and it is being launched recently, but it's being chargeable. But easier for a set of people who are developers who don't have to worry about installing anything, they can just use that. All right. Next in the kitty we have is ECS. So ECS is a bit different. It's not exactly, yeah, EC2. So it's not virtual machine, but it is something called container service. So you would have heard something like Docker, Kubernetes, right? So these services which are in DevOps and they are getting quite popular. So AWS has ECS, which is Elastic Container Service.
Well, what is it used for?
Right. So what it is used for? So let's say how it works. So do you know about container service?
Container service? No.
Okay. So let me tell you that first so that you'll understand. Okay. Let's see the difference so that we understand what exactly they are and why people are working with it. So most of the DevOps world or even developers at various levels, they are working with these because it provides you an efficient way and makes easy resources for you. So how it works? So this is your, let's say, machine. Okay, operating system. Okay, so this is your operating system and where you will be running, where you'll be installing your software. So let's say you install databases, you've installed one of the app server, you have installed one of the web server or any software, WordPress or whatever. So mainly what happens in this case, when you have such a thing, you have your operating system here, but all these components which are running, they are dependent on your operating system. So they are using resources from your operating system. Now consider your operating system capacity is, let's say, 16 GB. Okay, so I would say, let me get this. So 16 GB, okay, is what you have. But in actual, it may be utilizing all three together. It is just utilizing maybe 8 GB. So you already bought the machine, you already created the server, but you are actually not using it to full capacity. So you are making minimal use of it. So 8 GB is wasted, and same thing may be applicable for your storage and for other things, right? And then that's one thing. Other reason is, let's say if you want to move it to a different operating system or to a different server, then you will be giving a contract to one of the company and there will be a migration process. So you will have to migrate altogether. That's again additional cost. Okay. Now, so that's one thing. Then it also happens that most of the time developers they work and then after development it goes to one of your test system. I'll just write test here and I'll say denoted by TE. Okay, so it goes to test system and then it goes to production. Now why Docker came into picture, because organization they were facing some issues. What was the issue? So let's say they have run this application here. They have tested these three applications and they ran it. Now when it moved into test, so first one, second one, third one. So developer has tested everything and all piece of code and all functionalities, everything was working. But as soon as it came to test environment, maybe something broke. So mainly it was not working. And again, if it goes to production, it may break here as well. Now, reason was not this that there was something wrong with the code. Instead, the problem was the way environment was set up. So environment setting at this and environment setting at this and this was different. So mainly your environment was created differently and the software which you deployed, they gave a different scenario. Now, what happens in case of Docker? Docker simplifies it. I mean, Docker or container service, anything. So let's say this is your operating system. So instead of running this application, you actually deploy Docker or container service and then you run it. So what happens in case of Docker?
Hello. No. Oh.
This conference will now be recorded.
Hello?
Oh, so I'm sorry. I think I was on mute and I was talking everything. Oh, I'm
Yeah, I've not been
damned.
getting you. I was wondering what's going on.
Yeah, thanks for letting me know. All right, so I just what I said. Let me just repeat that. Not an issue. So I'm just creating one of the ECS service, and I'm going to repeat that for you. So what it does, so it has four steps. So any ECS service you create, it has four steps, which is your container definition, task definition, service, and cluster. So what we are doing is we are deploying a sample application, which is going to perform all these things. And let me do one thing. I have a VPC. I think I have number of VPCs in place. So let me remove few of them. So I'm just removing few of the VPC which I have.
So those are creating issues?
No, it won't. So only thing is you don't have to delete default ones. So wherever there is a default VPC, and there will be a default VPC for each of the regions. So make sure that you don't delete that. For example, I think this is the default one, so we will be not deleting it. Instead, I would be going for VPC, which is on Virginia. So I work in Virginia and I have created a number of VPCs. I'll be using that one. And the reason for not deleting the default one, because if you delete the default one, then you cannot recover it back, and then only AWS can do it for you.
Oh,
So I'm
okay.
going to delete these two for now. Yeah, so in free tier, you have a limitation in terms of how many resources you can create. So you have to manage them accordingly. Okay, so that one is deleted. We can go back to ECS. All right, so there was something. Yeah, it's not created because it failed, but we have a task for sure. Okay, so there are two tasks being defined. Let's take the cluster.
What are the tasks for?
Yeah, so task is within a container. So when you create a container, you define a task within it. So what your container should do. So it can, depending upon your application, what application you're deploying, you can change it. All right, so this is what we have. Okay, so for example, this is my container is created. And if I want to run any new task, I'll just add a task to that. And I can say anything. So I can define a definition. I can say, okay, task one, and where I want to run it, I want to run it as a Fargate or EC2 instance. EC2 instance, I definitely don't want to run because then it's running on virtual machine. So I can choose what I want to run, what I want to do with it, and then I can define how many tasks has to be defined, and then I give all these details, and that run that task. So task is something I can define later on as well and run it. So this is my container for which I don't actually need EC2 instance. So that's the difference which I explained. EC2 is your virtual machine, while ECS is your container. And there is one more service which is called EKS. It's different in a way because using that it's being recently launched, which is for Kubernetes. Okay. So like I said, you have Docker and Kubernetes. So for Docker, you can use ECS, and for Kubernetes, you can use EKS. ECK. Sorry, EKS. So yeah, so this is the one. So these are the two. These two are container service. Okay, so what I'll do is there are two more services. That is something I will cover tomorrow because these are interesting one. This is what we have for web server, and this one is actually serverless. So for this one, we don't even need server. So we don't need virtual machine. So this is an interesting one, which we'll be seeing it tomorrow. So we will go with this tomorrow, and then we should have enough time to go over the storage as well. So we'll start with the storage, but it won't be practicals tomorrow for storage. We'll be going through some of the conceptual knowledge about different storage types and what they provide when they're required. And then we'll go about doing the stuff on the next day. All right, so what we have covered today, so EC2 is already covered earlier. So what we have done today is Elastic IP is what we have done. And then we have done EBS volume and about these two container services and Lightsail and these two container services. What we'll be covering tomorrow is Lambda, Elastic Beanstalk, and then we'll be going through the concepts of storage, which will be covering all these. All right, so that's the topic for tomorrow, and we will just finish these two topics, and then we'll start with the theoretical concepts for tomorrow. Okay, so I hope you should be able to. You were able to create your load balancer. Did you test it?
I started creating it, but I'll continue tomorrow. I'll try to continue tomorrow. If I have any question, I'll let you know. Because I was very.
All right, no.
Mhm.
Sure, sure. All right, so let's wrap it up here for today, and then let's catch up again tomorrow.
All right.
All right, thank you.
You're
Bye.
welcome.
Have a good one. Yeah.